From downtown Scranton, this is Northeast Current. WQPX invites you to join us as we explore public affairs, current events, and arts and culture in northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Now, let's meet today's guests on Northeast Current.
Welcome to Northeast Current.
Hello everybody, my name is Jim Cullen. I'm the director of the People's Security Bank Theater at Lackawanna College, and I'm here with my good friend from PennDOT, Mr. Mike Toludo. Mike, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you. We're here tonight for the opening of our Teen Safety Forum. This week it is National Driver Teen Safety Week, and we're here to discuss that safety issue tonight.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here. I want to start by saying that you just being here and listening to us tonight could help keep you safe, potentially save your life or save somebody else's life, and that's important. As Jim mentioned, we're here for Teen Driver Safety Week, and throughout the remainder of the evening, you'll be hearing from our panel of experts. Each one of these people is a member of our community who cares very greatly about our safety on the road and plays a role in ensuring it. I'm going to go through and introduce all of our panelists now and give them each an opportunity to say a brief introduction if you feel like. And we'll start with Felicity Ernie from the PA DUI Association.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you to all of those who invited me here tonight to speak. Most importantly, as Stacy just said, thank you to all of you who are in the audience because you have the potential to save a life on the road, either yours or another motorist on the roadways outside. So thank you.
And next we have the District Attorney for Lackawanna County, Shane Scanlon.
Thank you, Stacy. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Please pay attention to the important information that's discussed tonight. You have a wonderful panel up here seated with me. Please think before you reach for that cell phone is one of the things that I'll preach. It's a pet peeve of mine as I drive around and notice the cars that I'm either passing or that are passing me, and I see the person texting or dialing a number on their cell phone. It's so dangerous, and really, you're just not paying attention to what you're doing. Thank you.
Next up, the Chief of Police here in the City of Scranton, Carl Graziano.
Thanks, Stacey. Good evening. This is an important, anytime we're talking about safety, whether it be for driving, distracted driving, it's an important topic. And if it helps one individual stay safe on the roadways, it keeps any of our families, our friends, our neighbors safe. It's an important topic. Our laws have become stricter over in Pennsylvania over the last few years since 2012, and the texting laws came into place. I think they still need to be a little bit stricter to catch up with the rest of the nation regarding cell phone usage. And we'll talk about that a little today. But again, thanks for coming, and if this helps one person here, it's a huge success.
Then we have Eileen Miller, who is a mom first, but also works very hard as a road safety advocate.
Thank you, Stacy. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I personally want to thank everybody, and I've personally been affected. My son in 2010 was killed by a distracted driver, so I really want to thank everybody for coming. I want everybody to listen, and I want to really thank everybody for spending the time to come and everybody on the panel, because this is very dear and close to my heart, so thank you very much.
Now the Lackawanna County Coroner, Tim Rowland.
I want to thank everybody for coming and Eileen for putting this together. It is so important. I hope we get some good information out of the panel and everybody pays attention. And I'll echo what Carl said. If it saves one life, this was a huge success.
Now Debbie Clark, a nurse and also the coordinator for the trauma program at Geisinger Community Medical Center.
Thank you, Stacy. Again, just what everyone else has said, we thank you all for being here. I'm impressed that we see parents here with their children because you are the people that are going to set the example for your children to go by. So again, where I work is where we do not really want to see any of you as patients. So it is important to pay attention to what everyone says here this evening.
And last but not least, Jack Hensis from Jack Hensis Driving School.
All right, my name is Jack Hensis. I am also a teacher at Dunmore High School. I teach the driver education and physical education and the health classes. If we can impress one thing on you, it happened to me August the 30th this past year, where a young lady was driving a car. Instead of stepping on the brake, hit the gas pedal, hit me in the back, and luckily we had our seatbelts on. So if I can't teach you anything else, you're here tonight, please wear a seatbelt.
Now, before we hear from our panelists, we are going to get a special presentation from Archibald Police Officer Jamie Trentley. It's called Survival 101.
Just give you a little background on myself. I've been a police officer now for 15 years with the Borough of Archibald. I'm a full-time officer. I have some extensive training in the field of DUI and also in this seatbelt presentations and Survival 101. I teach this particular program to the Valley View High School and middle schoolers, and I also go to the intermediate school and teach the younger students a simplified version of this. It's a very important program, and I feel that it should be taught in every school. So if it's not in your school, you might want to speak to your school personnel and see if we can get it put in there. The importance of this program is to teach everybody to wear their seatbelts, distracted driving, impaired driving, and to make sure everybody follows the laws and maintains safe driving on the roadways. This particular slide here is very powerful because I've had to do it. I know quite a few officers that have, and it's probably the worst part of the job, is to sit down with a parent and tell that parent that they lost a loved one. To tell that parent that they lost their child because somebody was texting, somebody was driving drunk, somebody didn't have their seatbelt on, whether it was that child or somebody else. It's something that nobody wants to do, and it's a very, very powerful message to get across. There's several things that we go over in this program. My clicker's not working, sorry. Use caution when driving with friends. There's a new law that was passed recently the last few years. When you first get your license, you're only allowed to have one passenger in the vehicle up until the first 6 months. That's for a reason. There was so many fatalities with young kids that had just gotten their license, who had a car full of friends in the car with them. What happens when you have a car full of kids in the car? They're playing the music loud, they're texting, they're talking to one another, they're distracting the driver. So for the first 6 months, you're only allowed to have one passenger in the car. A lot of parents don't realize that, so it's really important that you follow up on that and get to know the laws and make sure that the kids are following them appropriately. Seatbelts save lives. 3 out of 4 crashes happen within 25 miles of home. Those are the roads that you travel every day. Those are the roads that you go to the grocery store and back, to school and back for kids, to the football game and back. So that's why they happen more within that mile range. Seatbelts cut the risk of fatality by 60%. And all drivers under the age of 18 need to be buckled. Passengers as well. It's the law. We can pull you over and give you a ticket if somebody in your vehicle under the age of 18 is not wearing a seatbelt. It's a primary law. Doing it while they're in the car. Teens are 3 times more likely to die in an accident at night. They don't have the experience. And the Pennsylvania law says that you cannot communicate via text, email, any kind of web-based while you're operating a motor vehicle. Driving under the influence. This is a huge pet peeve of mine, and I have a lot of experience in this. I am an expert in the field of driving drugged and impaired. I have a lot of training in this field. 1 in 4 children die as a result of impaired driving. Pull over if you're tired. There's different characteristics that can lead to an accident. We just went over them there: distracted driving, driver error, impaired driving, and fatigue. Right? All 50 15-year-olds, they're so excited. I remember my daughter was so excited to turn 16, I was petrified, because I see what happens out on the streets. That is the most dangerous thing that a child can do. So then they get their driver's license, and they think they know it all, right? They think they're experienced, they did 6 months of their permit, they passed their driver exam, and they're all ready to go, right? They have all the experience in the world. Wrong. They're still learning. That's why we've been increasing the laws. And impaired driving, drug driving, and medicated. So when we talk about drugs, it's the illicit drugs, the heroin, cocaine, all of that, and then the medication we went over. So your vehicle comes to a stop, your body comes to a stop. What else is also going 60 miles an hour? Your brain, your organs, your heart, your liver, your spleen. This is how you get your ruptured spleen, your kidney injury, your brain injuries, because they are also still going 60 miles an hour and need to come to a stop. When you wear your seatbelt, it eases this stop and prevents these types of injuries. This particular guy was in his 20s. He was driving at a high rate of speed. He was not wearing a seatbelt. He lost control and hit a telephone pole. The coroner's on the scene, so we know what happens there. This is his vehicle. Doesn't look like a lot of damage in the front, does it? The back is pretty banged up, correct? I think he needed a little change in tires. It's a broken arm, some injuries, was ejected from the vehicle. This is her vehicle. It's pretty significant damage. She hit that red truck head on. The driver of the truck was wearing a seatbelt and survived the accident. That's her vehicle, and we just talked about livable space. Is there a lot of space in there between the dash and the seat? A lot of space in there. So if somebody had their seatbelt on, would they be able to still be sitting in that seat safely? Correct, right? All that damage on the outside, these vehicles are made by the manufacturers to crumble apart like that, but keep the inside interior intact so that we can survive accidents. A lot of space there in that seat there. You can't tell from this angle, but he had his seatbelt on and survived the crash, so. There's the female. Come on, clicker. This particular crash, it was a gentleman driving, another friend to school, and they were speeding. But they left school, sorry, they left school. And they were driving excessive speeds. Went off the road and hit the tree. The driver of the vehicle did not have a seatbelt on. The passenger did. That car was mangled up pretty good, is it not? How many people in here think that somebody can survive an accident in their car? And right below there's somebody who did some accident, so it's a right? Now, right below that the vehicles are made from When you get behind the wheel of a car, we want you to be responsible. I want you to wear your seatbelt. Make sure everybody else in your vehicle wears their seatbelt. And make sure you pay attention to the road.
All right, now we're going to open this up for questions. So I'd invite anyone who would like to ask a question of any of our panelists up. There are microphones here on the edge of the stage. You can ask any of your questions. And as we wait for you to come up, I have a couple questions that popped into my head as Officer Trentley was speaking. And I guess this could be for anybody, but mostly maybe for law enforcement. Is there one mistake that you see consistently over and over again, and not just fatal crashes, but any crash where someone is injured, a preventable mistake?
I think when we're talking about teen drivers, one of the biggest things we have to remember is that the inexperience is there. Certainly not saying that anyone, even myself driving all these years, that if you're distracted, you're distracted. Some statistics that if you take your eyes off the road to look at a text for 2 seconds, your vehicle is going to travel the length of a football field without you looking at the road. That's pretty scary. So I think distracted driving, teens today, unlike when I grew up and had my driver's license many years ago, there's much more distractions today than there was years ago. And I think we're seeing those results now. And I think that's the biggest thing right now is teens not paying attention to the roadway. We've had crashes over the course of the years. We've had one about a year ago, teen texting, admitting that he was texting as he was driving down Main Avenue in West Scranton. He took his eyes off the road for literally a couple of seconds, crossed the roadway, and hit a parked ambulance. It only takes a second of taking your eyes off the roadway. And to think about that gaining focus back when you pick your head back up and trying to reestablish where you're at, and it could be too late. And we seem to be having more death-related accidents. In the city of Scranton, on that same stretch of Main Avenue, we've had 3 in the last year and a half, almost in the same exact location, all of them from impaired driving. And it's an issue that we need to focus on, and it's something that is correctable. These are all correctable accidents that we talked about. I believe the statistic there was 80%. Eileen had even higher, about 94% are human error. And human error, some human error is going to be totally, that's why it's called an accident, but it's not an accident if you get behind the wheel, you're impaired, you're texting while you're driving, you're taking your eyes off the road. It shouldn't really even be called an accident. It should be called a crash with intentional actions.
We are moving to autonomous vehicles, and one of the things that we can look at with that, and you're absolutely right, people may not be paying attention to, but the federal government in the state of Pennsylvania, they're trying to work out what that means for the driver, the person who will be in the driver's seat of that vehicle. But until they get to that point, and they're estimating by 2020, we will be there. And until we get to that point, those drivers are so responsible, but all of us who share the roadway with each other, we're also responsible to be more of a defensive driver, an aware driver as well. Those autonomous vehicle, and I think until they get this is my personal opinion, not data or fact, but what I know about it, once we get to a point where we are 50%, 60% autonomous vehicles on the roadway, it will help prevent crashes that are human error. Will it prevent everything? Nothing is going to be foolproof there. But I think we're getting there, and I think that it's a way for us to start thinking, but we're not there yet, you're right. And it's a small percentage of American vehicles that are on the roadway that have that piece right now where they have the self-drive and that sort of thing. So excellent question, but we still have to know how to operate the vehicle.
At Dunmore High School, all sophomores are required to take the classroom work. And then as soon as they get their permit, we take them on the road. And our philosophy in Dunmore is, and I'm sure many other institutions, and I'm very disappointed that many of the schools have dropped it. And the biggest problem why people have dropped it is because back in 1960, when I taught it, and I'm giving my age away a little bit, but in 1960, they paid $35 per pupil. At today's date, they still pay $35 per pupil. So I blame the legislatures in Harrisburg, and people may not like what I'm telling, but I tell it how it is. They could have raised that where districts do not drop the driver training program. So what you have right now is a lot of people, including myself, that teach driver training, where parents like you that want your son or daughter to learn how to drive, and people pay me and pay other driver training teachers a large sum of money to teach them how to drive. Because when you go out on the road, you do not have a brake on your car. As much as I love my students, I have a brake on my car. And I want to make sure that I take them in wide areas right off the bat so they can understand what this is. But it's a responsibility. You know, I tell them it's a responsibility. You have to, this is a privilege. This can be taken away from very easily. And we've had students, because of our school, maybe parents, for what particular reason, maybe not doing well in school, or may not coming home at a particular hour. Our principals come to me and say, Mr. Henzis, so-and-so will not drive with you for the next 3 months. And that's fine. But I think, you know, you got to go back to it's just like our home life. It goes back to the parents. You got to make sure what's going to take place and do things the right way. Because if you don't, you could have all the devices. I know in my car right now, when I go around a turn, it comes right up on my dashboard, right there, how close you are to the curb. But when my students start my car with the push button, it says the driver is responsible for all actions that are going to take place. That's the first thing we talk about in my classroom. And they do that right there. You know, I tell my students, I'm not here to win a popularity prize. If your life's not the most important thing, you better take an inventory of yourself. Because I kind of like what I'm doing every day. Come to school and teach and meet the fine pupils that we have. Well, you know, once again, you must have it, the person must be 21 years of age to the new laws, okay? At one time, you went out, people got their permit on a Friday, could take a test on a Saturday. Then they went a week, then it went 30 days, now it went to 120 days, now it's six months. And we had 50 hours of driving. That worked for a while. All of a sudden, accidents increased. Now it's 65 hours. And people ask me, what do you think the next best thing is going to be? Might be 18 years of age. I don't know if that's true or not, but basically, the biggest problem we have right now is I tell my students, you're going to make mistakes, but if you don't have that seatbelt on, you're in deep trouble. You're in deep trouble.
Driving a vehicle for my daughter out to Colorado and had a flat tire. I've never had a flat tire in my life. But it was an I-70 where the speed limit is 75 miles an hour. I rode on the flat tire to the next exit, got off, way off the highway and changed it. I think you got to be, you know, you got to weigh that out and, you know, look what happened today. I mean, those people certainly didn't expect that to happen. And whether somebody's at fault, you know, we don't know yet. But, you know, you've got to keep your own, you have to be aware of your own surroundings and what is safe and what's not safe. How about if it happened at nighttime, it would be even worse than that.
Would it be okay, though, to call the police?
If the vehicle is going to be a hazard, or, you know, sometimes wheels fall off cars. You can't drive them off. Yes, absolutely. A call to 911.
Another question I had, and this could be for you, Shane, possibly, or even Chief Graziano. I see people texting while they're driving all the time. Is that still what was considered a secondary offense? Or if a police officer sees you texting while you're driving, could you be pulled over for that and get a ticket?
The new law in Pennsylvania is a primary offense. It's punishable by a $50 fine plus court cost. So by the time they add up court cost and EMS fees, about $150. Some of the problems with the current law in Pennsylvania is that officers have to be able to say that they were texting, reading a text, sending a text, reading an email. So where the loopholes fall in is that if they're looking at their phone, looking at an app on their phone, looking up somebody's phone number, looking at their GPS on their phone, that technically still is legal. Talking on your phone is still legal in the state of Pennsylvania while you're driving. Answering your phone, making a phone call. In many other states, it is illegal, and I think that's where we need to get to. And just some quick statistics, a new study that just came out in the state of California, I believe it was Stanford University, did a study on deaths as after cell phone laws are enacted, restricting cell phone while you're driving. Deaths overall dropped 22%. Distracted driving deaths as it relates to cell phones dropped over 40%. So I think that new study really should be used in the Pennsylvania legislators to make our laws stricter here in Pennsylvania.
And I know Eileen knows this very well. I'm wondering if you could maybe elaborate on where Pennsylvania could fill in those gaps and catch up with other states.
Well, I've been pushing for this. It's Senate Bill 153. Tepelis has the bill. I've been pushing for that. It's stuck in transportation. It's the handheld. I will say this, it will be able to, help the police pull them over because you can't tell if you're texting, scrolling, email, etc. It doesn't seem like it ever wants to get out. This is the second bill I'm pushing for. But I want to make this very clear. It will be good for legislature for us to push that through, but I want to make everybody be aware that hands-free is not risk-free. Everybody knows that talking on your cell phone is just as dangerous. It takes your mind off your task, which is simply driving. I tell everybody, turn it off. Do not have it on. Every time you have your cell phone on and you hear that ping, you get a squirt of dopamine off your brain, which makes you constantly want to reach for it, makes you want to go for it. And your one and only task when you are driving is to simply drive. You do not want to have that because you want to keep reaching for it. Every time you hear that ping, you want to, in your brain, even though you're driving, you want to keep reaching and you keep thinking, who sent me that text, who sent me that phone call, and you want to, my one and only thing, because I've gone through this and I lost my son, is to simply turn it off. Your one and only task is to simply drive. You want to get from one destination to the other destination and to do it and get there safely. You have loved ones at home. I lost my son. I know the after effects of it. My husband, after my son was killed a year later, was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. I know what happens. I had those 2 state troopers come to my home to tell me my son got killed. I'm telling you, you don't want to be sitting in my seat and walking the life that I'm walking. You want to turn it off. But the bill is there. We're pushing. I've been pushing for it. I hope I keep going down. I'm asking Harrisburg to push it through. I'm not going to stop. It's going to help the police. I know it will help them enforce the law. And I'm not going to stop. I pushed for the last bill, which was in the House. It went dead. It took me 4 years. I'm hoping this bill is not going to go dead. I'm going to keep trying to get it there, and we'll see where it goes.